Welcome back, fellow thrill seekers. Prepare to be captivated by tales of malevolent artifacts and the haunting mysteries they hold. From cursed dolls to haunted paintings, join us as we uncover the deadly secrets behind these cursed objects. Brace yourselves, and let's reveal the top 5 creepiest stories about cursed objects. Knock knock. Socy Dark Talks is back. I gave her a doll for her birthday. At first, she really liked it and said it was really nice. She liked how soft its hair was and how pretty its dress was. She kept it close to her all the time, even when she was cleaning during the day. She put it on the table where she could see it. At night, it stayed next to her bed, watching asleep, with its big blue eyes that didn't blink. But my wife's feelings towards the doll quickly changed. I started to see she was upset about something. I asked her what was wrong, but she didn't want to say at first. She just brushed it off as silly. As time went on, she became more distant from me every day. Eventually, I couldn't bear it any longer. I pushed her to tell me what was bothering her, insisting that she had to tell me right away, or I would take her to see a doctor. She couldn't keep it inside anymore and started crying as she talked. She told me it was because of the doll. It scared her. She said she felt like it was always watching her, and sometimes it seemed like it moved by itself. I got worried, so I went to check on the doll. It was sitting still on the small table in the bedroom, its big blue eyes the same as before. I felt a bit relieved and sighed. Of course, it wasn't moving. It couldn't have been. I started to look away, but then I noticed a small movement out of the corner of my eye. I turned back to the doll and picked it up from the table. I held it close to my face and stared into its eyes. Something was definitely moving. I tried hard to focus and look closer. Yes, there was definitely movement, but it wasn't from the eye itself. It was behind it. Before I could fully understand what was happening, the eye suddenly burst, and at least 10 squirming maggots spilled out of it. Shocked, I dropped the doll and instinctively backed away. My wife yelled from another room, asking what was happening. I yelled back, telling her it's okay. I grabbed the doll again and used a tissue to wipe off the maggots. Inside, I could see more of them, pushing against the skin and the plastic covering. So soon, I thought. I wished she could have lasted longer. I'll need to get a new one for her. Maybe keep it safe at first. That way, it'll definitely last longer. As I throw away the old doll, I remember how my wife often talks about how she loves the thick blonde curls of little Katie down the block. Doesn't Katie also have blue eyes? One day at school, Jack was sitting in class doing math. School was almost over, just 6 more minutes to go. While Jack was working on his homework, he noticed something interesting. His desk was by the window, so he turned and looked outside. It looked like a picture. When it was time to go home from school, Jack hurried to the place where he saw it. He ran quickly so nobody else could get it first. Jack picked it up and grinned. It showed a picture of the prettiest girl he had ever seen. She wore a dress with tights and red shoes, and her hand was formed into a peace sign. She was so pretty that he really wanted to talk to her. Jack ran all around the school, asking everyone if they knew her or had seen her. But nobody knew her. He felt really upset about it. When he got home, he asked his big sister if she knew the girl, but she didn't either. Since it was really late, Jack went upstairs, put the picture on his bedside table, and went to sleep. In the middle of the night, Jack was startled awake by a tapping sound on his window, like someone was tapping with a nail. It made him really frightened. After the tapping, he heard a giggle. He saw a shadow near his window, so he got out of bed, went to the window, and opened it. He followed the giggling, but by the time he got there, whoever it was had disappeared. The next day, he asked his neighbors again if they knew her. Everyone said they didn't. When his mother came home, he asked her too, but she also said she didn't know the girl. He went back to his room, put the picture on his desk, and then went to sleep. Once again, he woke up to a tapping sound. He grabbed the picture and followed the giggling. He walked across the street, but suddenly he was hit by a car. He died, holding the picture in his hand. The driver got out of the car and tried to help him, but it was too late. Then he noticed the picture on the ground and picked it up. He smiled when he saw a pretty girl with her hand holding up 3 fingers. A couple years ago, me and my wife thought we deserved some time off, so we planned to go out for a night in the city. We rang up our most dependable babysitter. When the babysitter got there, our 2 kids were already asleep in bed. So the babysitter just had to hang out and check that everything was fine with the kids. Later that night, the babysitter got bored and wanted to watch TV. But downstairs didn't have cable because I didn't want my kids watching too much junk. So she called me to ask if she could watch cable in the parents' room. I said it was okay, of course, but the babysitter still had one last thing to ask. She wondered if she could cover the angel statue outside the bedroom window with a blanket or something, or at least close the blinds, because it made her feel uneasy. I was stunned. My house doesn't have any angel statues. The phone went quiet for a bit. Then I quickly told her, "Grab the kids and leave the house. We'll call the cops." Within 3 minutes of the call, the police arrived and found all 3 dead bodies in the house. No angel statue was found at all. During our honeymoon in Maine, my wife and I visited the charming town of Boothbay on a rainy day. Since we couldn't have our picnic as planned, we went into an old antique store by the harbor to stay dry. While my wife checked out the big chests and tables by the door, I excitedly looked at the old tools and sea equipment inside the glass counter at the back. Since I collect optical and maritime instruments, I was hoping to find a sextant or an old telescope wrapped in leather. Then I noticed something really interesting. It looked like a big brass flashlight, all brown and worn, but it seemed pretty modern in style. I asked the store owner about it, but all he could say was that it was found in an old sailor's chest, along with some compasses and a sextant. He offered to sell it to me for $5 or just give it to me for free, saying it wasn't worth anything to him and nobody wanted it. When I mentioned the price, he sighed tiredly and then got it out of the cabinet for me. "Take a look at it yourself, buddy." The workmanship was great, really strong, and seemed like it was made by hand, maybe from Europe. The faded letters suggested it might be German or maybe Austrian. I turned the bulb and a dim red light shone out. I aimed it at a dark corner of the shop and saw amazing patterns twisting and turning like a bunch of eels. As I kept looking into this strange projector kaleidoscope, my imagination made up scary faces and twisted shapes. Turning off the device, I eagerly faced the shopkeeper. "Wow," I exclaimed. "There must be some kind of filter in front of the lens. I own 2 Victorian kaleidoscopes, but none of them light up like this one." "You don't understand, do you? Nobody understands. They all bring it back eventually," the shopkeeper said, leaning on the counter. I noticed he was breathing hard and sweating. "They all think it's some kind of trick, until they start seeing things when the light's off." "That's not a projection, sir. That cursed thing, that light, it's not creating those creatures. It's just letting your eyes see what's already there." I've heard tales of it. Retreat Road in Cochrane, Alberta. There's this monastery there, complete with monks wearing robes and all. But what really puts them on the map is this giant statue of Jesus, hanging on the cross deep in the woods. I've visited there a couple of times. I walked up the path lined with smaller statues, like a baby and a bunch of people reaching towards Jesus. It all leads up to this big 20-foot cross with Jesus hanging from it. But what catches a lot of folks off guard is that Jesus is crying on the cross. Nobody knows why. Crying doesn't seem like something a Lord and Savior would do. Never. Unthinkable. I've visited a few times in the daytime. It's a fascinating stroll. Even for someone like me who doesn't believe in God, it's still amazing. I saw lights under the statues. When I asked about them, they said they light up the path at night. I wanted to come back then, but they said the path would be closed, but they wouldn't tell me why. Not one for obeying rules, I went back that night. I climbed over the fence and got onto the path. As I walked along, passing the smaller statues, something felt off. It was how the light was hitting them. The baby statue. Its eyes looked sunken, and the shadows made its fingers seem like claws, the statue of the people reaching for Jesus. They seemed lifeless, with the shadows making Jesus look horrified. There was something about them that really bothered me, but it went beyond just what they looked like now. When I got to the statue of Jesus, I looked up at his face. I stood there for what seemed like a long time, just wondering why he was crying. What made him cry? What was the reason? I heard whispers and the trees rustling all around me way before I saw anything. I looked up at Jesus, stared into those stone eyes, then finally got it. That night, he was crying for me. Thank you for watching the video. I hope these stories above have brought you entertaining moments and unforgettable emotions. Make sure to like and subscribe our channel so you won't miss out any creepy tales and scary adventures in the upcoming videos. This is Socy Dark Talks. Stay curious and embrace the darkness.